supposed to eat something. It's pretty late. So anybody have a tea? Take a tea. Have something to eat. Please join us with some food. I had a l'chaim here, and it's finished. So, in any case, let us share some ways to reshape the way we see the world. Every one of us sees the world. Well, you know, as the old saying goes, what you see depends on what you want to see. So there's a beautiful teachings in the Ethics of Our Fathers that we actually a couple of weeks ago read. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, who was the leader of the Jewish people in times of the destruction of the Second Holy Temple, which was in the year 69, that was destroyed by the Romans. He asked his students, go out and find what is the best quality, a quality that a person should have, character quality. And each one of his students went out and found different qualities. And Rabbi Elazar ben Hyrcanus returned and he said, the best quality to have is an ayin tova, a good eye. That's what he said, a good eye. Your eye is your lens on your life. And if your eye is good, then your lens on life and how you will perceive the things that happen in your life will be good. If your lens is not, if you don't have a good eye, then what you're going to perceive and what you're going to see won't be exactly so good. That's what he said. So with this, I want to bring out a beautiful illustration of this stories. It's a Shabbos, so we said it's a time for stories. So there's a beautiful story that's told of a non-Chabad chassid from a different community in Brooklyn, came to the Rebbe for lekach. Lekach is honey cake. Erev Yom Kippur, the Rebbe would give out a honey cake, and you would also give out a honey cake on Hoshana Rabbah. And this chassid came, who felt the closest to the Rebbe, felt the closest to Chabad, and he wanted blessings. What better place to go to for blessings than from the Rebbe? So the Rebbe gave him a honey cake and wishing him a good sweet cheer, and then asked him, "Was Herten, was gehört? What did you hear in the teachings of your Rebbe?" So he quotes something that is from his Rebbe, that the Talmud says that sinning Jews are full of mitzvahs, just as a pomegranate is full of seeds. So his Rebbe asked the question, how is it possible that sinning Jews should be full of mitzvahs? That was his question. The Rebbe became very serious, somber, and looked at him and said, I also have a question on this Talmud. But my question is, how is it possible that Jews who are full of mitzvahs, the Talmud should call them sinners? Here we have two people who are learning the same piece of Talmud, who are perceiving the same teachings, and yet see it so completely different. From one extreme to the other extreme, from the good eye to the not so good eye. A beautiful example that brings this idea out. Last week, if you recall, we spoke about the fact that every single one of us has a bias. We have a bias based on life's experiences, based on our feelings where we're at that moment. So the question is, what is my bias? Am I actively working on trying to make a positive bias? The image of I'm sure we've all seen it. Young lady, old lady. The image of the young lady and the old lady. What do you see? You see the lady, or do you see the old lady? On Zoom right now, I'm going to have everybody on video off for the moment, and then God willing, we'll come on afterwards. So based on what our bias is, based on that will depend on what we'll see first, what we'll see second, if we're capable of seeing the other, or do we only see one? And the truth is, when we speak about a good eye, is it really the eye that's good? Not really. The eye is only transmitting as a conduit to the brain. The brain is translating that which we see. And what's it based on? Not what we see on our biases. In other words, all the experiences that we've had previously in our life, how we've translated them previously will dictate how I'm going to perceive this now. So it's not in the end, not really a good eye. It's a good brain. It's a good head. How am I taking my head, my brain, and developing it that the filter that it goes through, the eye, will be able to filter to my mind that what I will translate will see good. We'll see God. We'll see godliness. We'll see goodness in others. That is the challenge. Now, this is of paramount importance in our lives, yet it's a big and difficult challenge, because what it means is to rework our brains. Because if you recall last week, we mentioned that by nature, the mind is wired to see negative, to allow negative experiences to take hold of us. And on a simple level, that's for self-preservation. Because of self-preservation, negative experiences I need to learn from. While good experiences are good in the moment, but quickly fade to the background. That's why, as we spoke about last week and continue to bring it out again, how important it is that we develop our minds in such a way that we'll be able to see the positivity. And the truth, the only way we can see positivity, is that when we perceive God in our lives or in the world around us. And since God is all good, then we'll be able to have a positive outlook as a result. So this capacity is not capable just for the few. And as you might think, oh, for those who are lofty souls, every single one of us have the capability of having redemptive vision. We can redeem the way we see the world. Again, effort. It's going to take fortitude, but we can do it. So another story to bring this out. Another story with the Rebbe. I remember very well by the Rebbe, there was a photographer named Levi Yitzchak Friedan. He would come for the month of Tishrei. He was an Israeli who would come, and the Rebbe would, he would get in the face of the Rebbe, and the Rebbe would allow it. Other photographers, not in the same way as him, but he had kind of, the freedom to take pictures and videos of the Rebbe. In 1976, he held an exhibit of many of the videos and the photographs in Beit Sokolov, which was then in Bar-Ilan University. And the exhibit was there in order to allow Jews to have an experience, or some kind of an experience, connection with the Rebbe. And the exhibit was very well received. However, there was one journalist who commented sharply in the guest book. And he wrote, quoting, "With all due respect to the superb photography, the subject you have chosen is extremely clerical and takes us back to the primitive darkness of the Middle Ages." How do you see that? How do you perceive that? So Levi Yitzchak Friedan took, when he came back to New York, came back to 770, he took the guest book with him and he gave it to the Rebbe. I mean, for the most part, it seems like maybe that was the only real, statement. So the Rebbe was leafing through it quickly and he noticed a negative remark. And this is what the Rebbe said: "Please compliment the journalist on his strength of character. It takes fortitude to differ from all of the other responses." Here's what the Rebbe says: it takes fortitude to differ from all of the other responses. Wow. Then the Rebbe concluded with a further positive spin, "But tell him also that not everything in the Middle Ages was dark." Here the Rebbe takes a positive spin on something that was meant to be cutting by the individual. But the Rebbe saw, obviously it was meant. I shouldn't say that. Maybe that was my negative spin on it. But could be perceived as someone who was trying to be cutting, someone who was trying to be, to downplay and to be derogatory. Could you see that? Absolutely. And probably naturally, most people would see that. Is that what you have to see? No. Again, based on what you've trained your brain to be able to see, you could see differently. The Rebbe chose to. He chose to see differently. Let's take another example of this. The Rebbe founded an organization, I'm not certain of the dates, I think it was maybe somewhere in the early 70s, that was to counter the attempts of Christians to indoctrinate Jews and to ultimately try to convert them into Christianity. But he did not make this a Chabad institution for several reasons. One of them is to gain support and involvement of other Orthodox Jews that maybe if it was a Chabad organization, they wouldn't want to be involved. However, over time, the Rebbe's role became known, and one of the leaders that was involved in the organization, who was very opposed to the Rebbe, pulled out his involvement and actually made another organization, a similar organization of his own. And not only did he make a similar organization of his own, but he actually tapped into all of the supporters of the other organization to now support his organization. So the head of this original organization, who was not a Lubavitcher Chassid, but obviously connected to Chabad, and felt very much connected to the Rebbe, but he wasn't a Lubavitcher Chassid. He went and approached this big rabbi and challenged him. Why would you do such a thing? Why would you place politics before the welfare of the Jewish people? And he looked at him and said, "I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't do that." Completely a disclaimer he made. Nothing at all. Well, what is reasoning? I don't know. But he was still upset, this head of this organization, and he came to the Rebbe and he cried out to the Rebbe about what this individual has done. So the Rebbe, let me get The Rebbe quoted from the Talmud, speaking about when Yom Kippur is to be observed. Sorry, I'm going to take that back. If there should be a leap year or not, that a king of Israel and the high priest, the Kohen Gadol, are not allowed to be involved in the decision of when a leap year, if an extra month should be added in the month of Adar, and therefore making it a leap year. And the Talmud gives a reason, is because the king paid his army on a yearly salary. So if you add a leap year, an extra month, so 13 months in 1 year, he gets away with, I don't get away, maybe that's the wrong term, but he has to pay less to his troops. He gets a free month of his troops because it's 13 months of the year, not 12. Likewise, the Kohen Gadol cannot be involved in deciding when a leap year would be, because if you put an extra month, that means Yom Kippur is going to fall out later in a colder time. And since he has to go to the mikvah 5 times on Yom Kippur, perhaps he will not want a leap year in order that Yom Kippur can fall out earlier. And the Talmud says that this is the bias, the natural bias of a king and a high priest, even if they are holy people, based on the subconscious mind, if not sometimes maybe in the conscious mind, that they would just make such a decision because of the subconscious mind. Right? The Rebbe said, such is human nature, the Rebbe said, that people are prone to make calculations on self-interest, even if it's only in the subconscious mind. It may not be on the conscious mind. So if this is true about the high priest and the king of Israel, who are to be holy people, then all the more so this is going to be true about this rabbi. And the Rebbe says further, look, this Rabbi Nebuch was a rabbi back in Europe. He had a yeshiva that was successful, completely wiped out. He came to America, and what does he have? He doesn't have much here. He wants to create something for himself that like he had back in Europe. He wants to create something, as every human being wants to feel that they are contributing something to the world, or as Jews want to contribute, or as this rabbi wants to contribute to the Jewish people. And therefore, perhaps it's only on the subconscious level, but because of that, in his mind, he can justify his actions, just as the king and the high priest could justify their actions of adding a month or not adding a month based on the personal interests that they have. This is the nature. What do you want from him? The Rebbe says. Wow. Is that powerful or what? Everybody wants to do good, and everybody wants to have a legacy. He wants to have his legacy. So here was a person who did things out of what you could define as self-interest, and the Rebbe spun it that, well, that's human nature, and he wants to have his legacy, and the Rebbe didn't make him lily white, like he's a saint. But what he brought him to be is like a regular person, okay? It didn't emphasize the fact that he didn't rise to the occasion, but that's understandable. He was a rabbi in Europe who was very successful in his yeshiva, lost everything, and now comes to America. What does he have? He didn't have much. And this was a chance for him. I never understood that. Amazing what it means to be able to understand another individual who was, think about it, in the end, one could easily say, and the Rebbe could easily have said, is fighting me. And the Rebbe chose not to look at it that way. Even though he was hostile to the Rebbe, he was not a fan. But the Rebbe saw it from a human perspective, that this is human nature, and it's understandable why he would act in such a way. All right. Another beautiful example that demonstrates this point. This is a story of Shelley Shalombert, as he tells. He was in the yeshiva Torres Chaim on Belmont Street in Brooklyn, not a Chabad yeshiva. Well, this story must probably go back somewhere in 60s or 70s, I'm assuming. Shortly before his 10th birthday, his mother and baby sister, he tells his story. It's actually, you can see it on Gem, taken from there. It's a video. Before his 10th birthday, his mother, baby sister, they went to the Rebbe and had a private audience. So the mother says the following: my son Shalom has been thrown out of the yeshivas plural. And his teacher says he's not listening, and the rabbis are complaining he doesn't like school, the homework, the program. He likes eating stuff in class. The mother starts crying before the Rebbe. She's searching. What can I do? She's searching for answers. So the Rebbe turned to the boy, and he says this in first person. He smiled, and the Rebbe smiled and says, "Come here." The Rebbe, "Come here." The Rebbe said with a smile to him. And he says, "I was ready for the Rebbe because I've been ready for all the rabbis till now." Imagine, not even 10 yet. So he says to him, "You're the Rebbe?" The Rebbe smiled with him. He says, "Are you a good boy?" He says, "No." With conviction, as ready for this. So the Rebbe then asked him, "Do you like school?" "No." "Do you listen to your mother?" "No." You would think that the Rebbe played into him, right? Well, if we'd stop there, we'd say he played into him. He's being au contraire, negative, and the Rebbe allowed him to be that way. So with a big smile, the Rebbe turned to his mother and said, emes, he tells the truth. Emes is good. Truth is good. And nothing but to fight back. The Rebbe brought him into a trap. Brought him to say what he really felt. And the Rebbe appreciated that. He's telling the truth. And truth is good. Now, most parents or most people with those kind of answers are obnoxious, he's difficult, he's au contraire. That's really easy to see. But to see beyond that and say, with a smile, and then it means it, emes. Emes is good. This boy says at that moment, the Rebbe pulled me right back in to my Yiddishkeit. Powerful. Powerful how we can look beyond the insolence, look beyond the chutzpah, look beyond, a negative behavior, and go to something positive that's the truth. Just like in the previous story, the Rebbe was telling the truth about that rabbi. He wasn't painting a pretty story. He was telling the truth. What do you want? Here he's telling the truth about this boy. Now, to find that truth, to find that perspective, takes work. It's not a simple thing. Not a simple thing. Not a simple thing. Anyways, another story. This story is from To Know and to Care, Volume 2. I'm going to read it. By 1960, Yale Butler, the son of one of the leading Orthodox families in Pittsburgh, had developed a personal relationship with Rabbi Yossi Spielman, a local Lubavitcher rabbi. Young Yale was an individualist and a creative one at that. In 7th grade, right, which is what, 13, 14 years old, he became editor of the school newspaper. He wanted his first edition to attract attention throughout Pittsburgh's community, so he thought of a spoof. What was the spoof? One or more active figures in Pittsburgh's Jewish community was a Lubavitcher who often wore an army hat and jacket. Not this Rabbi Spielman, someone else. This and his untrimmed beard reminded many of Fidel Castro. It's 1960, right? In fact, the association was so common that he was nicknamed Castro throughout the community. The real Fidel Castro's totalitarian anti-American politics were not widely known at the time. It's only 1960. I think the Bay of Pigs was 61. I don't remember. I was very young. Yale decided to expand on the caricature, the visual association between the rabbi and the revolutionary dictator. He wrote a fictional account about an invasion of Cuba in which Castro's troops were in danger of being wiped out. In desperation, Castro called for his brethren in 770 Eastern Parkway, headquarters of Chabad. They contacted the Rebbe, and the order was given. Hasidim were to march on the Brooklyn Navy Yard, commandeer several submarines, and sail to Castro's rescue. Yale's story did attract attention, but not the kind he desired. Many read his article, but few approved. Even as a jest, it was simply out of place. Leaders of the traditional Orthodox establishment reprimanded the 12-year-old, he was only 12, for his lack of sensitivity and encouraged him to apologize to the Lubavitcher community. The first issue of the paper was thus its final one. Rabbi Spielman, however, did not reprimand him. You have to meet the Rebbe, he told Yale. 1960. Yale was willing, and Rabbi Spielman arranged for a private audience. One Sunday evening, Yale and Rabbi Spielman entered the Rebbe's room. The Rebbe motioned for Yale to sit down. As he did, he noticed Rabbi Spielman leaving the Rebbe's office. At this point, he began to feel nervous, a 7th grader sitting alone with the Rebbe. The Rebbe spoke to Yale warmly, telling him that he knew of his family and their work on behalf of the Jewish community in Pittsburgh. Yale was moved. The Rebbe continued complimenting Yale for his talent as a writer. Up until this point, Yale had been mesmerized by the Rebbe's eyes, but then he noticed, to his terror, a copy of his article on the Rebbe's desk. The Rebbe, however, made no mention of the article. He spoke of a person's obligation to see his talents as a trust meant to be used for the benefit of others. In particular, the Rebbe emphasized a writer should use his abilities to promote Jewish unity and love one for another. Yale began to relax, and his feelings of fear turned into feelings of empowerment. Instead of reproaching him for his disrespectful story, the Rebbe had recognized his potential, encouraged him to develop it, and gave him a positive and productive focus for the future. By 1982, Yale had become a rabbi and also publisher of the newspaper, the B'nai B'rith Messenger. In the paper, he used the talks of the Rebbe for the weekly Torah portion column. One night, he sat reviewing the list of people who had purchased lifetime subscriptions. He came across the name M.M. Schneerson. He had been sending the Rebbe a paper each week without charge. The Rebbe, however, had felt the need to subscribe on his own accord and pay for it with a personal check. Years later, the Rebbe remarked in a conversation that Yale, now Rabbi Butler, had shown unique skill as a writer since childhood. Wow. Does that send shivers down? Is that amazing or what? I don't know what to say. I'm going to ask everybody here to please show your video on Zoom. What an amazing story. What an amazing Rebbe we have. Also unmute. Good Vach, everybody.
Good Vach.
So anybody have any questions or any comments?
Yes.
Yes, Israel.
The rabbi had it in his dreams because the Baal Shem Tov always said, "Put the people." He had it in his dreams from the Baal Shem Tov. Baal Shem Tov don't say good things.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, we learned from the Baal Shem Tov, absolutely. And the Rebbe showed us in a very real way how we can implement those teachings in all of the encounters that he had, as we learned today with the first story of the Chassid that came to him and saw things not in the most positive light, right? Or the teachings of the Talmud, seeing others in a very negative light. And the Rebbe was able to see it differently. So our challenge, right? What's our challenge? Our challenge is, are we capable to rise above our pettiness? What do I mean our pettiness? Our smallness, and that we just see what survival would dictate for me to see. And survival will dictate for me that I have to be on top and you have to be below me. Then you have to be below me. Because if you're on top of me, if you're beyond me or ahead of me,
After this, okay?
Sorry, you know what? Whoever wants to share something, maybe unmute because there's some feedback, whatever. So that's the human condition, is that I've got to be on top. If I'm not on top and above you, then that is a threat to my. It's a threat to me. Rising above that is recognizing that you're not a threat to me. If you recognize, God in your life, God in the world, God is real, then you'll recognize that other people are not a threat, but we're all together in the same boat. We're all together in need of each other. One person has some qualities that are greater than mine because from them I learn, from them I gain, and I have some qualities that are better so others can gain. And then we're not threatened. But the human condition is survival. That's the animal soul, knows survival. And by survival then means that I have to be on top, otherwise I'm not surviving. I have to be above and greater. But the godly soul that we have recognizes there's something beyond human survival, and that is the connection that we have with each other. That we're all in the same boat. We're all in the same world here to make a world of good, to make a dwelling place for Hashem. We're here to serve and not to be served. The human condition is I want to be served. And survival means you need to serve me for my survival. to rise. And then I can't look good at you unless it's beneficial for me. And that's how our mind will be trained naturally. Naturally, that's how our minds will be trained. However, if we get in touch with our neshama, with our soul that is bound up and one with God, then we can recognize the connection that we have to God, then we can have the connection to others. And based on that essential bond that we have with others, the soul, the godly soul, isn't about survival. It's about connection. And it's about connection and not being disconnected. So then we'll seek out the connection. So, you can't connect with another person by hitting them over the head, figuratively, right? You can connect to another person even if they did something that's hurtful, in a good way, as we just learned. So we got to develop our minds in such a way that we can see the good. All of us see good in ourselves. The question is, what good? What's the good that I see in me? And that's really where it begins. Do I see good in me as a survival tactic? In other words, I see the good in me because that makes me feel good. And therefore I feel, making me feel good is what I'm seeking in my life. Right? But that's all the animal soul. That's all the human condition. I'm seeking to feel good. The godly soul isn't seeking to feel good. It's seeking to do good. Because it is good. So therefore it is a part of God, so it only wants to be good. It's not seeking to feel good. So the challenge is, when I look at myself and I see the good in me, is it in order that I should feel good? So then it's not coming from a good place. And therefore, the good I'm going to see in others is only if it makes me feel good. And most people, you won't see good unless it feeds you to make you feel good. Then sometimes you'll see the good in the others, only because it makes you feel good. Then therefore, that's why you see the good. But it's all about me. Nothing to do about you. If, though, the good that I feel about myself is not a feel good, but because I am good, because I got a part of God in me. The good about me is that for a Jew, is a Jew. That's the good of me. That I have a godly soul. That's a part of God. That's my good. And my good is because I'm a Jew and I'm, connected. And want to be connected to Hashem. So then it's not about a feel good. It's about being good. Well, being good. So being good. So then that will prompt me to see good in another, because that's part of being good. That's part of being good. And why do I want to be good? Because I'm in tune with my neshama, with my soul. And my soul is good. That's why I'm good. So it's not about because I feel good. I'm seeking to feel good, which is all self-directed. But I'm seeking to be good. And therefore, I'm going to work on myself, because part of being good is to have a good eye and to be able to see the good in others. And I'm already at a much healthier place, because the good about me is not based on on the human condition of feeling good. And therefore, by the way, it's consistent. It's not it doesn't come and go. If it's based on feel good, well, right now I feel good about myself, but later on, I don't, may not. It's not consistent. And I'm going to be, sad, depressed. And therefore I'm going to eat something so I could feel better. Or I'm going to watch Netflix so I could, divert my attention. Or I'm going to seek fun because because your whole basis is just on feel good about myself. But if we refocus on our neshama, that is good. And why am I good? What do you mean, why am I good? I got a Yiddish neshama. I got a soul. It's good. So by the way, then it's not like, oh, I'm good because, I did something good even. I am inherently good. So I'm focused on that. And that will give me the capacity to have a good eye, to be able to focus on other people's goodness. Because I'm focused on the God particle in me and not on anything else. That, by the way, that's work. That's real tough, challenge to be able to focus on that, because it doesn't come natural. And self-preservation is natural, right? As we mentioned, again, just to remind ourselves, self-preservation means all the negative experiences are important to my human condition in order that I learn from them, that I can preserve my self. And it's important, obviously. But when you're dealing with another person, doesn't have a knife in his hand, so I don't know about self-preservation. But yet that's the nature, and therefore, even without the knife, might be a sharp tongue. Therefore, that's very memorable. And I got to protect myself. No, you don't. That's only if you live on self-preservation, that you are the end-all and be-all. You are your needs and your desires are what need to be met. That's being here to be served. What am I here for? To be served. And the bottom line is self-preservation needs to be served. We're not here for that. We're here to serve. And we can only do that based on the neshama that we have. That's already good. So I focus on that, then it's not so difficult to serve. If that's my true reality. Now, we're always going to go, fluctuate between two. It's going to happen just because we're not tzaddikim, we're not righteous. But that's okay. At least, what we need to do is commit ourselves to the truth and recognize that, the self-preservation of my natural instinct is not my truth. And maybe someone's going to put, my loved one's going to push a button, and sometimes I'm going to fall back into that mode of self-preservation. And I need to protect myself then. Okay. Don't get lost there. Don't think that's your truth. Don't make that where you're going to live, because then that's not living. That's not truth. It's not life. And there's no joy in that. And we're always just seeking to preserve our whatever. Powerful stuff. Maybe too powerful for Motzei Shabbos. Maybe too heavy of a farbrengen, I don't know. So who do we have here? Liana, Gutavah, Sina. Thank you for joining. Ron. Also, Scotty. Melanie is with us. Heather, for Gutavah to you in Norwich. Sandy is with us. Gil. Moshe, Gutavah, New York. Joel, thank you, Joel. Shavua Tov, Jonathan from Brazil. Sherry. I miss anybody? Chaya, Arlene, Tim, Shmuel. Some feedback, anybody? Anybody have something to say? I'm talking too much.
It was a beautiful Shabbos.
Anybody on? Beautiful, wonderful. Beautiful,
Uplifted,
beautiful.
very uplifted Shabbos.
That's great.
Mhm.
All right, folks. So I'm going to wish everybody. Sorry, David. You wanted to say something?
Thank you for the matzah. That was a beautiful matzah.
Wonderful.
That was
good.
Pesach Sheni was extra special.
Great. Beautiful, beautiful. Sarah Malka, Larry.
Gutavah. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining. Pascal, Israel, David and Batya, Rosie, and everybody else. Wishing you a good Tavach. And Tuesday night, we will, tomorrow night, 6:30, there's a class. So come and join us, class on Lag BaOmer. And Tuesday night, we're going to have, that's tomorrow night at 6:30. Tuesday night, we're going to have with Rabbi Mendy and myself and a guest. We'll have a special Lag BaOmer Farbringen. So please come and join us. Wishing everybody Shavua Tov, a good Tavach.
Is there going to be a bonfire, Rabbi?
Yes, everybody in their own backyard. Be well. Thank you for joining.